What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey, Nick.
Hey,
What's up?
thanks
Gentlemen.
for not waving at the podcast, Eric. You're
I'm gonna
really
figure
growing.
this thing out slowly but surely.
I'm proud
You're
of
going
you.
to turn me into a podcaster.
Well, I think we got the four of us, all four of the co-hosts of the Lights Out in one episode. That's never happened.
No, it's a first.
Caleb, how was Europe?
Awesome. Yeah, it was great. There with the wife and my 1-year-old. So besides the 9-hour plane flight, which was an adventure with a 1-year-old, everything else was great. So,
How'd he do? Did he sleep at all, or was it pandemonium?
going there was okay. It was overnight, but coming back was rough. Just basically constantly having to entertain him 24/7. It was an adventure, but we made it. We survived.
What's more stressful, that or moving like Dave? Probably the baby on an airplane, actually. Like, there's very few things that are more stressful than moving.
At any point, Caleb, did you try singing him like one of your soothing Austrian lullabies?
I feel like German and Austrian is the furthest thing from soothing. The way
I know, right?
language sounds.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was going with. Yeah.
Gosh, this is why you won't go to sleep at night. I always sing them in German, and so it's like now it makes sense. It's just like it scares him in his nightmares.
I am excited to get back into the story. Like we said, Caleb was in Europe working on the prequel. What was the name of the prequel, Eric? The prequel to the Gary Klaus story?
Automation Trap, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Okay, I feel like that might be used somewhere, maybe Star Wars, but we'll workshop that.
If it is Star Wars, George Lucas doesn't sue people, so we're okay.
Yeah, good. So yeah, just to kind of revisit, we thought it was going to get better for Gary, and not so much. I think Gary's life is still falling apart in the last episode, but right at the end, after Mr. Green from Shrewd Tech calls and he's very upset. It's completely unacceptable. Klaus gets a call from Gary. Gary basically blames Klaus for all of his problems, which is how you know he's a true winner. And Klaus responds with empathy and says, hey, let's meet for lunch and let's commit to this new partnership that he was basically offering. He slid him a book, The Goal, which is like one of my favorites. It's a good introduction to lean. And then they start talking about mapping the flow of iron clunk manufacturing and doing the things that you ought to do if you want to automate correctly. So Gary gets a little bit of hope at the end of the last episode, and we'll figure out if he can turn it around. I'm optimistic since I wrote the story. You guys ready to dive in?
Let's go.
All right.
Fire it
Let's do
up.
it.
Klaus's investment in iron clunk machining is a lifeline, injecting capital that lets Gary exhale for the first time in months. Over coffee in the shop's cluttered office, Klaus leans forward, his eyes steady. Gary? By the way, I just gave up on the German accent, so just don't even ask me to do it because it turns out like Jamaican or Irish, so just imagine it with a German accent.
Just every single episode, it's like a different accent.
Okay, so you'll have to use your imagination, audience. But Klaus says, Gary, you've got grit, heart, and a shop with serious potential. This isn't a handout. It's a strategic bet on Iron Clunk's future. Gary's chest swells, hope sparkling where despair once gripped him. Klaus introduces his team. Tim Woods, LeanStream's Senior Director of Continuous Improvement, a lean master who speaks in flowcharts, and Sarah, the quality manager Gary lost to LeanStream, is now here to rebuild. We are mapping your shop's flow, Klaus says, tossing Gary a marker. Let's turn chaos into flow. The shop's mess, piles of material, idle mills, the cobot's overproduction looms, but Gary's ready to fight. Cool.
Let's go, Gary.
I like how Sarah comes back. She's not really like his employee, but he still gets to benefit from the young lady he was actively recruiting for that quality position. So gets a little Sarah experience here. See what she can do now that she's had some tutelage under Klaus and Tim Woods, which is the best name ever. Do you guys know where that name came from? Yeah, it's an acrostic. You know what an acrostic is? I got nailed this in the last episode of Making Chips, and they were like, damn, you're smart. An acrostic.
Back to first grade.
Yeah, so like when all the first letters of a bunch of words like spell something out so you can remember it. So Tim Woods is the 8 wastes. T for transportation, I for inventory, M for motion, W for waiting, overprocessing and overproduction, defects, and not using skills to the fullest. Tim Woods.
Outstanding.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know what I like about this part of the story too is that they're about to like map it out, right? I know we've talked about it in previous episodes, but it's like there's this sense that when you're kind of in your mess, you're trying to read the label from inside the jar, and it's like always, I think, just a healthy exercise to throw it up on a whiteboard. You know what I mean? Like map it out.
And it's a team thing too. You know, obviously Klaus is very good at lean. He's got lean stream manufacturing, but he brings in his whole team to help out. So I love that.
Yeah, and I also like how it kind of, the word I kind of like to use is we're going into like diagnostic mode instead of firefighting, right? So it's like kind of stepping back and like we're still evaluating it and we have a lot to fix, but it's more like, diagnostics instead of just like firefighting every hour of every day.
Yep. And I think it's important to point out too, Klaus didn't get into this just because he felt bad for Gary, right? He got into it because he saw the potential of turning things around. He knew that, there's kind of the basic components of Gary's operation that with his kind of lean playbook applied could result in, a great return for him. So I think it would just be an encouragement for anyone who maybe identifies a bit more with Gary than with Klaus that, your shops are not too far gone from being turned around. It's really just kind of going through that initial process, mapping out your process and installing the operating system to kind of turn things around.
That's a super solid point. And if you talk to people who are in acquisition mode, they're often looking for the iron clunks, shops with tons of potential that are maybe not managed perfectly. They can buy them at a discount for those reasons, bring in their way, their philosophy, their team, their energy, just like Klaus is doing, and then make the company a lot more profitable. This is a Mike Payne thing. This is like I've talked to my father a lot about what we're looking for when the family business looks for an acquisition. It's like sometimes buying it's like a free agent in sports. Buying that proven veteran and acquiring him on your team, you got to pay for that, whereas like if you find a 4th round draft pick that's got a ton of potential, you can get the value at a discount. So yeah, it's exciting to see how they do this and how they make Iron Clunk more valuable. Let's jump into the next scene. In Iron Clunk's grimy break room, Tim leads a value stream mapping session, whiteboard markers squeaking as he draws a timeline from raw material to finished parts. Gary, walk us through your process, step by step. Gary describes operators fetching material from cluttered piles, waiting for complicated fixture setups, and sending parts to quality post-machining. And then Tim probes. Well, how long's the setup? How many parts wait before inspection? How do you track jobs? Gary digs through oily travelers, admitting, well, setups take hours, maybe 50 parts stack up, and then travelers sometimes get lost in the mess. Tim introduces job tagging, explaining tagging each job with status and priority keeps flow visible. Your lost travelers scream waiting and non-utilized talent. Operators waste time hunting for paper. He maps 10 hours of lead time for a 30-minute value-adding process, revealing the 8 wastes: overproduction from the cobots' unchecked runs, inventory that's piling up, waiting during setups and lost tags, motion from fumbling work holding that isn't in the proper place, defects spiking scrap, transportation shuffling materials dropped wherever they could find a spot on the floor, and then non-utilized talent sidelining Bill and Bob in robo-babysitter roles, and extra processing with manual deburring that could have been done in the machine cycle. Sarah flags the constraint. No in-process inspection bottlenecks quality. And Tim applies theory of constraints using the Iron Clunk anecdote. He applies the theory of constraints by explaining, we elevate this constraint, quality checks, by subordinating every step that leads up to it. And this ensures material flow and machining prioritize Sarah's in-process inspection to prevent defective parts from piling up like they did with the Cobot's unchecked runs. Gary's aha moment hits. Automating the Cobot was wrong. It buried us in waste. Spindle utilization's nothing without OEE and profits. Re-energized, he sketches the constraint and he's motivated to fix the system. All right, so now we're getting into the weeds here. That's what I love about this episode is like we are value stream mapping. Everybody's putting their mind to it and we're figuring out like this aha of inspection being the bottleneck, which is kind of like that created the biggest problem. That's why Earl quit and stormed out, the quality guy, because when you automate prior to the bottleneck, you just make it a bigger problem.
One thing that stood out for me, just like right from the beginning of that scene, is like Tim's asking Gary some questions about his operation. And it kind of seems like Gary doesn't really know. It's like, yeah, setups probably take longer than they should. Parts do pile up. And I think it just reflects, maybe like the lack of some kind of a business management system, something like ProShop ERP, where if everyone's using it properly, that data is getting logged, and then you've got like real solid data-driven answers to all those questions. So that definitely kind of stuck out.
No, I was just going to say I can like continue that thought, David, with this is, we've been saying this in like work holding for a long time. I'm sure it's the same in just about every facet of a machine shop, right? But it's leveraging the experts. Here's the advantage, right? Not only does he have these experts in mapping out the flow, identifying true bottlenecks, but they're doing it quickly, right? This is their skill set.
Yeah. And if you think about like a general work holding catalog, whether it's SMW Autoblock or Triag or Shunk or Fifth Axis, like these are thick catalogs with a ton going on. And it's like, what's the right mousetrap for the job or the right way to set this up? Like, you can call people and they'll walk you through that. And then the other thing, Dave, that jumped out to me that would be totally solved with a system like ProShop would be all these lost travelers. It's a paper-oriented system. It's very easy to lose paper than it is to lose like a digital process that's on a screen next to every machine.
Easy to waste a lot of time and a lot of motion walking around looking for the paper. It's lost and you're like, I'm just going to take 20 minutes and try to find that.
Yeah.
Such a waste of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the obvious one for me is the 10 hours to complete 30 minutes of value, right? That's like a big no-no right there. And I know we're talking about lean, but we also mentioned QRM, quick response manufacturing, in the last one, and that's kind of one of their big takeaways, right? Is like everyone wants to focus on that, reducing that value add time, right? Like how do I get my spindle utilization up? How do I decrease my cycle times on a part, right? But we're focusing on that 30 minutes, which is great. We can maybe bring that to 20, right? But there's this other 9.5 hours of time that is waste, right? And so it's just like that, like where the focus is, it's like so easy to focus on those areas that are like, I need to improve that value add time, when actually it's everything else.
Yeah, that's a super solid point. And I think about that all the time with automation. Like, obviously we're in that business and we sell automation systems, and it's like, well, how quick can it change like one pallet to the other pallet? It's like, all right, well, if it does it this way, it can do it twice as fast. It could go from a 30-second change to a 15-second change. And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's really great if you're in some like automotive transfer line where every second is crucial. But in most shops like Gary and Klaus's, you have chunks, hours and hours of just time waiting in queue or machines that don't run overnight. The last thing you need to worry about is like how quick you can change a tool or how quick you can swap a pallet. When you, like you said, in this case, there's 8 or 9 hours of just the machine sitting doing nothing.
Yeah, and then that light bulb moment, right? That really the issue that Gary's having, if we think back to his original kind of automation investment with that robot that didn't work out as expected, was kind of no in-process inspection, which just bottlenecked quality. So understanding kind of what the real issue was and kind of that light bulb moment for Gary. I mean, that was probably huge for him and just kind of understanding why everything went wrong the way it did.
And one thing to mention here is, some people are going to say, well, a few episodes ago, you guys talked about making sure that what you're doing in the machine is value add, right? And we're moving deburring back into the machine. We're saying, but it also depends where you're at in the process, right? What you're building out, right? Because if we go back to, I actually wrote it down, episode 12 with Max Falcone of Push Corp. It was a great episode. And we talked about what processing outside the machine looks like and why we want to do that, because we want to use that time in the machine effectively. But this shop is not at that point, right? It's not at the point where we're automatically pulling parts out of the machine, inspecting them, and then deburring them outside of the machine in an automated fashion. That's controlled. That's a controlled process, right? So I think that's just something to call out, because we talked about moving that outside of the machine, and now we're talking about moving it back in. And so it really depends where you're at in the process, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, 'cause I was thinking about that too as I was writing this genius novel. We did talk about that with Max, and in that case, he was making the case for sometimes you do want to do deburring out of the machine. How they're doing it is very high tech and interesting with the force feedback, end of arm spindle on a industrial robot. But yeah, you need to know like why you're doing everything you do, to your point. If you deburr in the machine, why? If you deburr outside of the machine, why? And what gives you the why is like really understanding your value stream. So finally, the aha moment of going back in and using lean principles to figure out how to use technology appropriately so you don't create a monster. You guys ready for the next scene?
Please, let's go.
Cool. Daily stand-ups in the shop's corner spark change. Tim champions 5S as a philosophy, not an event. Sort, set in order, shine, standardize, sustain, and this drives ownership across Iron Clunk. Shadow boards for tools and standard worksheets for setups clear clutter. Floors gleaming under new standards. Bill and Bob, initially surly, vent at a stand-up about the Cobot's single part loading for Shrewd Tech's high-volume job. It locks us into one part type and it slows us down. We still have other customers, Bob grumbles. And Sarah nods, valuing their insight. Let's design automation that empowers you, she suggests. Feeling heard, Bill designs a shadow board for wrenches, and Bob drafts a setup worksheet cutting, weighting waste. Their pride returns as 5S transforms their shop. Tools organized, processes standardized. Tim ties their ideas to a VSM, value stream map, showing how faster setups boost their OEE. Gary beams, and he sees his team's talent unleashed, aligned with a system-wide flow over raw spindle time. Nice.
I like it. I know it's a fictional story, right?
Yeah.
Based in reality. But talking about transforming employees like outlooks and performance with the 5S's, that is complete reality. I've seen it so many times, shop to shop to shop over a 25-year manufacturing career, giving people ownership, involving them in the process. Always wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feeling heard. Bill designs a shadow board, and Bob drafts a setup worksheet. Like when people feel heard, they commit. Once you start to feel heard, that's when you start to really commit and add to it. You stand in a meeting and wait for it to be over when you're not feeling heard, and we've all seen that in shops.
Yeah, it's a box you check, right?
So yeah, just what Eric said is like when you have ownership over it, it creates pride also, right? And so like instead of just directly saying like this is what we're going to do, this is the 5S setup, like for your own shop, when was the last time you asked your guys on the floor, your guys or gals on the floor, how would you design this workspace? Like, and of course it has to be standardized and work across the floor, but if you bring them into it, it changes things because then they have a pride in it also.
Yeah, such a good point. It's funny, back in my job shop days, we went through this process where, we actually like emptied the shop out, we epoxied the floors, we put Kaizen foam in the toolboxes, we did shadow boards, we organized the tools, and it was a bunch of work for sure. But it's incredible how much more enjoyable work is when you have like a clean, organized environment, and how much less frustration you experience when like the tools are there where you expect them to be. When you go to clean up, it's super obvious where everything goes. In addition to being good business practice and like there being, a positive business outcome, it's just better for your team in general, I think, to run that way.
Yeah. There's a episode of Making Chips from a while ago with my older brother in it, and he talks about our 5S journey, and he's like, yeah, we were 3Sing, and it felt like way more work than it needed to be because you have to like re-standardize and you never sustain it. So you sort, you set an order, you shine. It's like growing up, like you clean your room, but you don't have any good habits, so it gets messy as heck. Or if those of us that have kids, we see this every single day, and it drives us crazy. Actually, all of us have kids. Caleb, your kid's too young to have to clean his room yet, but you will feel this pain, I can promise you. And it's like the standardize and then sustain it is where you feel like the real payoff. Because if you just like clean it up and then everything goes to crap, you don't actually follow the shadow board, you don't put stuff back where it goes, you don't have standards that are written and documented that everyone holds each other accountable to, then it's just, clean in your room. It's just a huge mess.
And then it circles back to that, and you'll hear it in just about every shop, right? You'll hear we've tried that. And it's like, but have you? But have you?
Yeah, exactly. Like I ate a healthy meal once and I didn't lose any weight, so dieting doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to sustain it. Who's ready for the fourth scene?
Let's dive in.
Klaus unveils a lean automation vision, proposing automated pallets with 0-point clamping to replace the cobots and the single station vise. Your mill can handle multiple parts per cycle, he says, sketching a pallet system and packing the table with parts. Sarah adds in-process inspection made easy with their new probes and 0-point system, and it catches defects mid-cycle to elevate the quality constraint. Tim's future state value stream map slashes lead time to 4 hours. Material flows from organized racks, pallets cut setups, and probes ensure quality. The cobot, limited by its grippers, is swapped for a robotic loader for high-mix jobs, keeping Bill and Bob engaged. Gary nods, seeing automation as a lean enabler. It's the whole system, he says, scribbling OEE metrics, availability, performance, and quality on the whiteboard. Tim's theory of constraints lens sharpens the plan. Subordinate material flow to quality, exploit pallets for throughput, and Ironclunk's future state shines with a streamlined flow. Yeah, baby. This scene gets it. This scene's where it all starts to come together, and all these things that were causing us to cringe early in the story are starting to like sort themselves out and put themselves in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a pro tip in here, especially on the fixture side of any process improvement, right? So I'll just come with it, right? Whatever 0-point system you're investing in, get one for the CMM also.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you're not doing first article, if you're not doing in process, or maybe you are doing those things, but it's just a bottleneck, that will solve a big percentage of that problem.
Yeah. And another key here is they're catching defects mid-cycle in some cases, right? So like,
yeah, absolutely.
So they're like, quality is not this thing that happens at the end of your shop right before something ships. Like where they can, they're catching these, especially in like the sketchy areas where they were noticing things were starting to drift. You're catching that in cycle and making the fix right away, instead of trying to make the fix by way of throwing away 10 scrapped parts and starting.
Absolutely.
Over.
Yeah. So jumping into this scene, we kind of took a big jump in quite a few areas. So there's a bit to talk about here, but obviously the big one that's going to stand out for me, being the automation guy, is going to a loader for high mix jobs, right? And there are options for loading parts for high mix, but it definitely makes it more complicated. And it can't be to the same extent, right? So when, we're seeing the issues that they ran into because of having this low margin job from ShreWTech and running lights out, but then having a bunch of parts that had defects, and they have a huge pile of parts just waiting in the morning that they can't get through. That overproduction within that time frame, is kind of one of the like lean items that we talked about here. And so what you're kind of able to adjust for here is that you can run those. You can still run those same parts. But if we do inspect and we find, hey, I'm having issues on 1, 2, 3 parts in a row. I don't know if it's the tooling. I don't know if it's something about the material. I don't know what it is. We can stop that and move on to other parts, right? Because if we're in a pallet system, we can run those parts. We can pause and say, okay, let's move on to the parts we can run, right?
Exactly.
And then go from there. So I think that's a huge win right there. Is we're not producing bad parts, we're not overproducing, and then we're able to get through the parts that we had those higher margin opportunities on.
Yeah. It's important that people don't hear what you're not saying. Like, there is a place for kind of machine tending where you're moving a part into an automatic vise. And there is some flexibility with some systems out there. But what in this case, you heard it was Bill or Bob, one of the machinists, is like, we've got other customers too. Well, that machine doesn't really have other customers when it's limited by what the gripper can grab. And basically you're dedicated to one job, and there could be a reason for that, but you have no flexibility, no versatility. To your point, like if something goes wrong with that job or something gets out of spec and you don't know exactly how to fix it, you can't just go grab another pallet that's loaded with a different job and run that one. So super solid point there.
So I think another point here is obviously the probing and in-process inspection, right? So we're doing that in-cycle measurement, which if you're listening, you're like, well, that's great, but that also means our spindle utilization goes down, right? Because probing does not count towards spindle utilization. And so I think that's where, going back to like where Gary started with some of this, he just saw spindle utilization as the factor and was like, oh, I need to increase that. And sometimes that's not the case. Like if your constraint is getting quality parts out, there's an evenness to everything. And that's another like QRM principle. They actually, in that methodology, they actually don't want, no one gets 100% OEE anyway, but they don't want the 100% because they're like, we want in a high mix environment like it is here, we want that a little bit of capacity for flexibility, for changes, for any issues that arise. It's different if you're in a high production environment, right? But being in a high mix environment here, which most job shops are, that's actually a valuable thing. So your targets for anything like that should be reasonable. Maybe your spindle utilization actually isn't, you don't want it super low, but you also don't want it super high because that just means you're struggling in other areas.
I think that's a super solid point. Like I think 80% is something to aspire to, and leave yourself some flexibility.
Yeah. And bandwidth for continuous improvement stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to the next scene here. A week into the partnership, Gary and Linda, Linda's back. Gary and Linda join Klaus and his wife Heidi for a dinner at a cozy diner. Klaus raises a glass to Gary, forging a legacy from Iron Clunk's heart, and Gary blushes. His flannel shirt's a little lighter today. Heidi turns to Linda, voice soft. Klaus was a wreck starting Lean Stream. I don't know the accents. I'm doing my best.
You know what? You abandoned doing the accent on Klaus, but when it came to Klaus's wife, you're like, yeah, I'm going to give this a shot.
That was outstanding.
Klaus was a wreck starting Lean Stream.
Brow line.
He was sleepless. He was distant. I nearly walked out, but Lean taught him to trust his team, and it taught us to trust each other. You're not alone, Linda. And so Linda's hand finds Gary's. Her smile is warm. Klaus shears Lean Stream's early fumbles, a jammed robot, a scrapped batch here and there, and it made Gary feel like he could be a contender. Laughter fills the booth, pie plates empty, and Gary's heart lifts. He sees Linda's hope mirroring his own, a partnership on and off the shop floor. Let's go. I know everyone's been wondering where Linda's at.
I was honestly losing a lot of sleep over that one. So
it's good to see that they held it together, Gary and Linda.
They did. And can you just, for us, Nick, because I didn't hear it the first time well, could you reread what Klaus's wife had to say?
Klaus was a wreck starting Lean Stream. He was
Exactly what
sleepless.
I was-
He was distant. I nearly walked out. But Lean taught us to trust his team, and it taught us to trust each other. I'm channeling
it.
my Oma, R.I.P. Irmgard Golner, but yeah, I don't think I got it down really. My accents are trash.
No, I think you did beautiful.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Not a ton to say here, other than when you look at somebody who's killing it in the metalworking nation, chances are they didn't start off killing it.
Yeah.
And also what's going on at home is absolutely going to impact and influence what's going on at work. You can't really separate those as much as people try.
No, shop owners are busy people,
Yeah.
right? And work life separation isn't necessarily always possible. So you look for work life integration, but I mean, people bring that stuff home with them. It affects families. It really does,
Yeah.
So you're not born a successful manufacturing entrepreneur, apparently. You actually got to learn that stuff,
No.
sometimes the hard way.
Yeah, there's this big
Yeah.
debate, are people born good or are people born evil? I have a position on that, but are people born with lean thinking and 5S philosophy? Absolutely not. I can promise you that.
No way.
Gary walks Iron Clunk's floor, envisioning a lean future. OEE and on-time delivery metrics align the team, dashboards flashing shared goals. Automation, pallet systems, robotic loaders. It frees operators up for more creative tasks. Everyone owns quality with probing and in-process checks, catching defects early, and a 0-point system consistent with the machine, making it easy to go from machine to the CMM. A continuous improvement culture hums, with Bill tweaking a rack, Bob refining a worksheet, and Gary leading stand-ups. The value stream map whiteboard charts progress, organized racks, palletized mills, clean floors under 5S rigor. Sarah's probes help them uncover the next element of waste. Tim's theory of constraints focus, and Klaus's vision guide everybody without overpowering them. The shop is raw. New systems aren't live yet, clutter lingers, but Gary imagines a team excited to contribute with flow driving their profits. He grips the goal, its lessons of constraints and flow alive in his heart. The real test still looms, but Gary is ready to lead.
Wow.
Let's
You know
go.
what? I think schnitzel and cabbage rolls and bratwurst for everyone, because this is worth celebrating.
And more pie, please.
Yeah.
I think it's worth
Yeah.
celebrating.
So we were before.
Absolutely.
I love it. And it kind of got said in order, right? But it wrapped with Klaus's vision, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, this whole story so far, especially this part of it, vision, then strategy, then tactics.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
And not mixing up that order at all.
And that's how they got into this problem in the first place, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
I saw a robot. I saw spindle utilization on charts. I'm going to buy all this stuff with no strategy, no real vision for what the shop needs to look like or the philosophy of a good manufacturing facility,
Yeah.
because there was no foundation in lean or flow or continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So,
Or a way to measure the success
Yeah.
of the whole endeavor.
yeah, exactly. That's a super solid point.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read the book Traction, the EOS book. Have you guys read that one?
Yeah, I love that book.
Yeah.
And one of the big takeaways there was just like having the overarching vision and then kind of understanding your 10-year, your 5-year, your 3-year plan, reverse engineering those into whatever the critical tasks are so that you're on track. So, that's such a big part of this, in addition to everything that's going on, with the value stream mapping and applying lean principles.
Oh, look at that.
Don't mind me.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, we got to see it.
You right back.
I love it.
So when you were talking about like being born with like understanding manufacturing methodologies, I made the comment, but I was muted. Is my son does build blocks and do his with his building blocks he follows lean methodologies. So just calling that out ahead of time. But no, just kidding. I mean, I think really in scene 6 here, what we see is like, for me, is like the progress visibility. Like now we have visible progress, and moving forward we have visible progress. And I know you guys already kind of said that, but I mean that's huge. It's like now we actually know what we're tracking. We know we have a little bit more of a target of where we want to be in the future, and we know what we got to continue doing to get there. And so that's what I'm excited for moving forward here with Gary.
100%. Yeah. Dave, when you made that point about EOS, it kind of connects to a larger theme here too, is like what works for some shops doesn't necessarily always work with others.
Mm-hmm.
And so what always works is like visual controls and keeping score and like knowing what you're trying to achieve at your company. But you brought up EOS, like we didn't go 10 years, 5 years, 1 year the way they prescribed, because 10 years feels like an eternity for the way our company is. We changed so much. Like, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, like we've doubled for 7 straight years and we're in this brand new market. Like 10 years ago, we would have no idea that it would have been this way. So like it would have been, I think, too far for us at our family business. But we use 1, 3, and 5. Okay, cool. It's still like you're taking what applies and you're using it and making it your own. So similar to Gary looking at how Klaus ran his company and just being like, I'm going to do exactly that. Don't do exactly that. And even all these lean books, like you read Toyota Production System, or they'll write in the book, like they're giving exactly how they achieved all their success to the world. Their competitors can read it, but they know these are Toyota solutions to Toyota's problems. So there's some like themes there that I guess their competitors could, and they do steal and borrow them or whatever, but they're not giving like the secret sauce intellectual property, because it's going to be different for everybody, and I think that's kind of a general theme here. Use these best practices that across the board are going to work for any type of company, and then make them your own.
Yeah. And like, I think a really great question that a shop owner might ask themselves is like, what's the end game for my business? Do I want to sell it? Do I want to get acquired? Do I want to acquire other businesses? Do I want to pass it down to my kids? Do I want my employees to buy it from me? And that can really help bring a lot of clarity in terms of what you're building towards with all of this. So great shout there. Everyone's going to have a different goal, which means the process by which they get there, the technology they invest in, all these things are going to be kind of a function of whatever that goal is.
Yeah.
Right. It's core principles and how you apply them.
Yeah, 100%. So the other thing we need to talk about, I think maybe the most important point, what type of pie were they eating when they celebrated at the end of our little story here?
I will just say, if someone says pumpkin, I am going to rage quit this podcast.
That's
fair. I get that, actually.
So you guys hate pumpkin pie. This isn't a Thanksgiving show, so pumpkin pie's out.
We're just thinking of things in Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going.
Gotta be
they're eating strudel.
Strudel.
It's an apple pie. That's probably the most German pie. I was thinking key lime, but nope. We're gonna go with apple.
I'm a big pecan pie guy, so I mean, I don't know if there's any other votes for that, but
well, that would be me voting for my own death, because I'm extremely anaphylactic when it comes to tree nuts. So
that's something worth knowing, Nick. If we like,
that was really insensitive, David. You were really insensitive towards Nick's nut allergy.
All right, time to cancel myself from this show.
Yeah, with that,
Sorry, Nick.
With that dose of pecan pie, I'm turning the lights out on my life, and it's time to turn the lights out on this episode. Appreciate you guys for coming. I'm super pumped about the 4th and final episode of this series, because this is where Gary starts to steal the baton and lead Klaus. So I'll just leave it at that.
Go, Gary.
I love it. Thank you, guys.
Yep. See you guys.
Appreciate you guys.
Bye-bye.